Namaste, Shubhodaya. A very warm welcome to one and all to yet another session of Global Festival of Oneness 2025. This is Nitin Sridhar. Let me begin with the prayer. Vakratunda Mahakaya Koti Surya Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Jayanti Mangala Kali Bhadrakali Kapalini Durga Kshama Shiva Dhatri Swaha Swadha Namostute Ishvaro Guru Ratmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Shri Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Shrutismriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Once again, a very warm welcome to everyone. Today we have with us Swami Japasiddhananda ji. A very warm welcome to you, Swamiji. Thank you for making time for our session. Swamiji will be speaking on a very, very interesting topic, philosophical underpinnings of Hindu values in Shankara's commentaries. I'm also personally very, very looking forward to this talk, Swamiji. Thank you for picking up such a wonderful topic. Just a brief introduction. Swamiji is a sannyasi in the sacred Ramakrishna order, headquartered in Belur Mutt. He is currently serving as the coordinator at the Department of Samskrita and Philosophy, as well as head of the Department of Ancient Knowledge Traditions under the School of Indian Heritage at Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda Education and Research Institute, formerly known as Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda University. Thank you again, Swamiji, for making time for the session. Please go ahead and start your session.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Yathāgnirḍāhika Shakti Ramakrishne Sthita Sarva Vidya Swarupantam Saradam Pranamamyaham Om Namo Bhagavate Ramakrishnaya Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Lokashankaram. Suprabhatam Samupasthitanam Samesham Pritipurvakam Swagatam Shubhashayah cha Bhagavatpada Śrī-Śaṅkarācārya Janma Tithim Upalakshya Masam Abhivyapya Pratidinam Prataha Sayancha Vyakhyanam Indic Academy Iti Samsthaya Yat Samayoji Tena Vedantam Jijñāsūnām Mahanayam Upakaraha Vyadhāyi Nūnam Sadhuvādān Arhati Iyam Samstha Asyaha Samsthāpakam Kulapatim Nirvahakan Sadasyan Sevavratinascha Hrida Abhinandamaha Prayatnenānena Bhagavatpada Shankara Prasidatu Upanishadaha Dharmaha Asmasu Avirbhavantu Brahmopalabdhau Anukulyancha Siddhyatu iti Tasmin Parasmin Brahmani Samprarthya Upakramyate Vishayaha Shankara Bhashyeshu Sanatana Dharmacharanam Darshanika Mulani iti Ayojakanam Abhyarthanam Anugamya Angla Bhashaya Prastuyate. The topic of today's discussion is philosophical underpinnings of Hindu values in Shankara's commentaries. Shankara's exegetical literature, as available today, is vast and diverse. It covers several scriptures. We shall focus on Prasthanatraya Bhashya, the commentaries on Upanishad, Gita, and Brahma Sutra. At the outset, we need to clear what Hindu means in this talk. Here, Hindu does not mean any political entity. A better alternative nomenclature, therefore, would be Vaidika or Vedantist, as Swami Vivekananda suggested. The term Hindu, therefore, in this talk represents the race which once stood for spiritual wisdom, purity, and strength of character, values based on the ideal of oneness. That race is represented by the term Hindu. We'll take up a few eminent Hindu values. 1. Parents and teachers are worshipped as God. 2. Reality is beyond. Every Hindu knows that the world which he sees is ephemeral. It is something like a kaleidoscopic effect, but something beyond is what is actual, the real. This every Hindu knows it intuitively. Therefore, all his conduct and behavior is based on this primary understanding, his concept of reality that affects everything he does, he speaks, and he thinks. Every Hindu knows that. Third point, real power is in knowledge, the spirit. If someone thinks that strength and power consists in muscular manifestation, the energy in the muscle, or in politics, or in money, then he is not a Hindu at all. A true Hindu knows that knowledge is power. Strength is in the spirit, the Atman. Fourth, spirituality is the lifeblood of every Hindu. Swami Vivekananda went to the extent of pointing out that if we pray that it should not be, but in case someone takes to robbery, being a Hindu, someone has taken to robbery, Swamiji said he will rob in the religious way. He will first go to a temple, pray, offer something, and then go to robbery. This is just a figure. This is a figure. It's an exaggeration. It should not be taken at the face value of the words. What is meant is the lifeblood of the Hindu is spiritual wisdom, spirituality. Fifth, body is considered as a temple. In the Hindu culture, the Hindu value, no one ever sees body as an object of enjoyment or pleasure. Body is considered as a temple. Sixth, there is no sacred secular divide in Hinduism. This much is sacred, after this is secular. These activities are sacred and these are secular. Such a divide is not there at all. Seventh, symbolism is the beauty of Hinduism. The Hindu mind conceives everything as a symbol of the divinity behind, the effulgence of the spirit behind. 8, wholeheartedness in every act, in the performance of every deed. Hindu will insist on wholeheartedness. Wholeheartedness here means putting all the faculties, bringing all the faculties to bear on the act he performs at the moment. 9th, the law of karma is the moral compass. The Hindu would adjust his behavior, his conduct, his activities, his profession, everything with this moral compass, ethics, morality. That is guided by the law of karma. 10th, learning and character go together in Hinduism. We may go one by one. First, parents and teachers are worshipped as God. A child, an infant, as he grows into childhood, he is taught at home that he should revere mother, father, teacher, and all elders. Mother and father are revered as God. Teacher is seen as God himself, manifest in that form. Ācāryadevo, it is called as, it is in the Taittirīyopaniṣad Shikshavalli. The mantras are mātṛdevo bhava, pitṛdevo bhava, ācāryadevo bhava. There, Bhagavan Śrī-Śaṅkara comments that mātṛdevaha, mātā devo yasya saha, tvam mātṛdevaha bhava syaha, evam pitṛdevo bhava, ācāryadevo bhava, atithi-devo bhava, devatavadupasya ete ityarthaha. Ete devatavadupasyaha. You should worship them as if they are God himself manifest in that person. This is again corroborated by his bhashya in Kaṭhopaniṣad. The Kaṭhopaniṣad first valli, there is a mantra. triṇāciketastribhiretya sandhiṃ trikarma krittarati janma mrityu brahma jajñam devamīdyam viditva nichāyemam shantimatyantameti. triṇāciketastribhiretya sandhiṃ. The performer of the yajna, he has to get connected with that vidya through 3 channels. Just by reading in the book or in the modern language, you search, you browse on the internet, you have got the data, and now you are a shrotriya. Stupid. Such a thing cannot happen. triṇāciketastribhiretya sandhiṃ. Acharya writes, Bhagavan Shankara writes, Tribhihi mātṛpitrācāryaihi etya prāpya sandhiṃ sandhānam sambandham mātrādi anuṣāsanam yathavat prāpya ityetat tadhi pramanya kāranam śrutyantarād avagamyate yatha mātṛman pitrman, etc. What does it mean? Getting connection with the 3. With connection means he should get connected with the vidya through these 3 channels. What are they? Mother, father, and teacher. That is, getting his instruction from mother, father, and teacher properly. Why is this emphasized? Because that is known as a source of valid knowledge. That means getting instruction from mother, father, and teacher in the proper manner is known as the source of valid knowledge. It is said in the another Vedic text as one who has a mother, father, teacher should say, mātṛman, pitrman, etc. It is in the Brihadaranyaka, 4.1.2. We come to the second value. Second value is this: reality is beyond. This concept, this perspective is what founds, it is what gives the values which Hindus follow. The reality is beyond. He knows that. That is why Upanishads call upon the souls to wake up from this ignorance of phenomenal life. What we see outside, the day-to-day happenings, they are all just a play, a drama. Actually, they represent something beyond. That has to be realized. You have to cut through the veil of Maya. The Maya is the happenings that appear, the transient things. Cut through the veil and see the truth behind This idea every Hindu has intuitively in his own way. Maybe he may not have studied scriptures, but he has that something else is there, the reality. Bhagavan Śrī-Śaṅkara explains this in the Kaṭhopaniṣad, in the mantra, Uttishtata Jagrata Prapyavaran Nibodhata. Acharya says, Atmani Sarvam Pravilapya Nama Rupa Karmatrayam Yat Mithya Vidrimbhitam Kriyakaraka Phala Lakshanam Swatmya Yathatmya Jnanena Marichi Udaka Rajju Sarpa Gagana Malaniva Marichi Rajju Gagana Swarupa Darshanena Eva Swasthaf Prashantah Kritakrityo Bhavati Yataha Ataha Tad Darshanartham Anadya Vidya Prasuptaha Uttishtata he jantavaha Atmajnana bhimukha bhavata Jagrata Ajnana nidrayaha Ghora rupayaha Sarvanartha bija bhutayaha Kshayam kuruta. Just as the water in a mirage, the snake on a rope, and dirt in the sky are eliminated through the perception of the real nature of the mirage, a rope, and the sky, similarly, by dissolving in the Purusha, the self, through the knowledge of the true nature of one's own self, all that is projected by unreal ignorance, which is characterized by action, instrument, and result, and which is but constituted by the three name, form, and action, one becomes established in the self and peaceful in mind, and he has his goal achieved. Since this is so, therefore, for the sake of realizing this, you creatures, you are sleeping in ignorance that has no beginning. Arise, turn towards the knowledge of the self. Awake, put an end to the sleep of ignorance, which is terrible by nature and is seed of all evil. Thus, this call of the beyond is somehow there in every Hindu. He may ignore the call, being taken over by the glamour of the world, but inside he always has that pulse, the pulse for going beyond. This is the Hindu nature. Third point. Hindus know that the real strength, power is in the knowledge, the spirit, the Atman or Brahman. We can notice this in the life of common men also. When a man feels incapable of facing the vicissitudes of life, when all other sources of strength and succor become ineffective, it is the knowledge of the self, the Brahman, that sustains the spirit. Now, in the case of common man, he might not have studied scriptures and had known self, Brahman, Atman, etc. But inside, there comes a moment where he takes a dip into himself and comes out with freshness when he is in the midst of torments and troubles. That is why we see that whenever someone is in a very bad condition, he is in grief or despondency, those who are well-wishers to him will speak of the reality first. Because at that stage, when a man is hit to his core, this knowledge will soothe him. That is why Bhagavan Sri Krishna spoke to Arjuna, who was sitting despondent mood. In a despondent mood, he is sitting in the battlefield. Sri Krishna first spoke to him on the highest knowledge, Sankhya Yoga. There he speaks of Atma Jnana. We also have another celebrated example in Ramayana, where the Vishwamitra's life was narrated to Rama. It is said there, Vishwamitra was Kaushika earlier. He was a redoubtable Kshatriya. But he realizes at a point of time that all his military strength, all his power has come to naught in front of the spiritual radiance and glory of Vasishtha. He says, Dhigbalam kshatriya balam brahma tejo balam balam ekena brahma dandena sarvastrani hatani me. He realizes that. He says, fire upon the strength of warfare and polity. The power born of the experience of Brahman is true power indeed. So every Hindu, he may not know in this much detail, but his intuition always tells him that the external power is nothing. The power should come from the Atman. Atmana vindate vīryam, it is said in the Kena-Upaniṣad also. Everywhere we find that Upanishads are full of energy, the energy of the Atman. Nayam atma balahinena labhyaha. It is said in the Mundaka-Upanishad. In the Brihadaranyaka-Upanishad, we get a very good insight in this regard. In this regard, the strength of the Atman. Yahyeva putraishana sa vittaishana ya vittaishana sa lokaishana ubhehyete eshane eva bhavataha tasmad brahmanah pandityan nirvidya balyena tishthāset. Bhagavan Shankara explains, tasmat eshanabhyo vyuthaya jnana bala bhavena balyena tishthāset sthatum icchet. Sadhana phalashrayanam hi balamiteresham anatmavidam tad balam hitva vidvan asadhana phalaswarupatma vijnanam eva balam tad bhavam eva kevalam ashrayet. What does it mean? Therefore, the knower of Brahman, after renouncing desires, should try to live upon the strength which comes of knowledge. Those others who are ignorant of the self derive their strength from the means and results of actions, from the external means. The knower of Brahman avoids that and resorts simply to the strength which comes of the knowledge of the self, which is naturally different from the means and the results of an action. What does it mean? It means all the external means he gives up. When he does this, his organs have no more power to drag him down to the object of desire. This is an important point that we should note. Those people who wish to transcend the senses, what is the means to do that? Jnana balahinam hi mudham drishtadrishta vishayanam eshanayam vishayayam eshanayam eva enam karanani niyojayanti. How clearly Acharya has written that. And he also says, Balan nama atma vidyayā ashesha vishesha drishti tiraskaranam. Strength is the total elimination of the objects visible or invisible. A strength is the total elimination of the vision of objects by self-knowledge. Hence, the knower of Brahman should try to live upon the strength. As another Shruti puts it, through the self one attains strength. Atmana vindate vīryam. Fourth point. Spirituality is the lifeblood. Kena-Upaniṣad says, Ihache davedid atha satyamasti nache diha vedin mahati vinashtihi. Iha. Acharya writes, Iha cheda vediditi avashya kartavyatoktihi viparyaye vinashashrutehi. Iha manushya janmani sati avashyam atma veditavyaha iti etad vidhiyate. Katham iha cheda vedit viditavan. Atha satyam paramartha tattvam asti avaptam bhavati. Tasya janma saphalam ityabhiprayaha. This every Hindu knows. His life attains to fruition not by sensual pleasures, political power, financial growth. All these are necessary, maybe, but his sight, his mind's eye is always centered on the spiritual illumination, the ultimate goal, Paramapurushartha. That guides Hindu in his life. Atha satyam paramartha-tattvam-asti avaptam tasya janma saphalam-ityarthaha na chediha vedit na viditavan vrithaiva janma. If someone loses sight of the spiritual goal, his life is in vain. Apicha mahati vinashtihi, Acharya writes, Mahan vinashaha janma marana prabandha vicheda prapti lakshanaha syad yataha tasmad avashyam tad vichedaya jneyaha atma. Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna used to tell time and again to his devotees, the ultimate goal of human life is to realize God. That is why Swami Vivekananda, in the 3rd volume, we find it in his complete works, Swami Vivekananda used to say, if a Hindu is not spiritual, I do not call him a Hindu. Acharya Bhagavan Shankara has clearly said, that is the Janma Safalya. And if he has not achieved that, Vrithaiva Janma. 5th point. Body is temple. Hindu knows that his body is to be considered as a temple. That is why we find in festivities, in other customary practices, a Hindu will take bath and then go for that festival. Whatever he does, he will first cleanse himself. Since he is performing the puja of a deity, he won't think that the deity has to be cleansed. He will clean himself. Of course, he will put some water, we call it as an abhisheka, as a part of the ritual. That is different. It is actually not cleaning the deity. It is actually offering the service to the deity. Whatever we use in our life, we offer that. That becomes Shodashopachara or even more. But he first cleans himself. This shows that what is his view towards the body, his life. That is why we find shlokas like Deho Devalayaf Proktaha, Jivo Devas Sanatanaha, etc. Bhagavan Śrī-Śaṅkaracārya in the Brahma Sutra, Anarabdha Karye Evatu Purve Tadavadhehe, he clearly mentions that Brahma Jnanayatanam Janma, this Janma, this body, is an abode of Brahma Jnana. And again, in the Prashna-Upanishad, last section, last mantra, Acharya clearly says, Brahma Sharira. He uses the word Brahma Sharira. It is given, it comes once he takes initiation from the Guru. The situation is different there. There, the people, after having attained spiritual, people mean there are the 6 disciples who went to the Guru. They, after attaining the spiritual illumination, they tell him, Tvam hinaha asmakam pita brahma sharirasya. They consider that the body of this flesh and blood is just an occasion. It is just an occasion where we work out our karma. But actually it is a means to Brahma Jnana. You indeed are our father. Tvam hinaha asmakam pita brahma sharirasya vidyayā janayitritvat nityasya ajara maranasya asya abhayasya. You are indeed our father, since you have generated through knowledge a fresh birth in Brahman that is eternal, ageless, deathless, and fearless. 6th point. There is no sacred secular divide. Hindu knows that every act, however mean in common view, could lead to spiritual illumination. We have that celebrated example from Mahabharata, where a young Kaushika goes to beg alms, and the woman, the householder, she teaches him knowledge. He was embarrassed, but he was humbled. He accepts that. And she further tells him that you go to that butcher, Dharmavyadha, and he will teach you further. He was crumbled. His ego was crushed. He goes there and learns from Dharmavyadha. What does all this show? He was performing tapaha in the forest. He comes to a householder's home where a lady comes and tells him, I know what you think in mind. Do you think I am that Balaka? It goes on. You all know the story. By this, the primary message that is disseminated, and it has reached every Hindu, and everyone knows that every act is a holy endeavor. It is sacred. It could be raised to the level of worship, and that itself can lead to spiritual illumination. That Grihini, just by serving her husband, she had achieved knowledge. The Dharmavyadha, just by serving his parents, he had known what he should in life. That is why Bhagavan Shri Krishna says clearly in Gita, Sve sve karmanyabhirataha samsiddhil labhate naraha. And again, the next verse in the 18th chapter, 1846, it says, Swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manavaha. Man becomes perfect by worshipping God through one's duties. Bhagavan Śrī-Śaṅkara writes there, Yataha yasmat pravrittihi utpattihi cheshtava yasmad antaryaminaha ishvarat bhutanam praninam syat yena ishvarena sarvamidam tatam jagadvyaptam sarva karmana purvoktena prativarnam tam ishvaram abhyarchya pujayitva ārādhya jnānanishthā yogyatā lakshanam siddhim vindati mānavaha manushyaha. By worshipping God through the duties that devolve upon him, man worships Ishvara and he attains to the perfection. Kevalam jnānanishthā yogyatā lakshanam siddhim. Kevalam. That means he becomes fit for attaining the highest spiritual illumination. Seventh point. Symbolism is the beauty of Hinduism. Every Hindu has this view. He can very quickly understand the symbol, and he tries to get what it actually suggests, what it points to. This view, this mindset, this psychic build is one of the characteristic features of Hindu. Let us take that famous example of the conflict between gods and demons combat, the fight between the devas and asuras, presented in Puranas. Puranas they contain stories, but a Hindu knows that those stories actually indicate to something else. This idea is there. Bhagavan Sri Shankara explains this. He dilates on this in the Brihadaranyaka Bhashya. In the first chapter, we find that. There is a mantra, Dvayaha Prajapatya Devash cha asurascha tatah kaniyasa eva devaha jayasa asuraha ta eshu lokeshu aspardhanta teha deva uchur hanta asuran yajna udgithena atyayama iti. The context is different there, but the philosophical basis of the stories, that is very important. Their Acharya writes, Vartamana prajapatehe purva janmani yad vrittam tad avadhyotayatiha shabdena prajapatyaha prajapatir vritta janmavasthasya apatyani prajapatyaha kete devascha asurascha tasyaiva prajapateha pranaha vagadayaha. It means it is here used to recall the Prajapati, the word. It is used to recall what happened in the past life of the present Prajapati. There is a particle, ha. There is one indeclinable ha. About that, the Acharya has written that. It is here used to recall what happened in the past life of the present Prajapati. Here, what does Prajapati means? The creator, the Brahma. Prajapatyaha, or Prajapati's sons in his past incarnations. Who are they? The gods and the asuras, the demons, devas and asuras, gods and demons. The organs, that of speech and the rest of Prajapati himself. It is interesting, we should note that here God means not some being sitting somewhere else. That is all okay. When it comes to philosophy, it simply says that the text simply says, Acharya says, Upanishad says this, the speech and the other organs are considered as the gods and asuras. That's all. How can this be so? Acharya himself discusses this. Acharya writes, Katham punastesham devasuratvam indriyanam vagadinam uchyate shastrajanita jnana karma bhavita dyotana deva bhavanti ta eva swabhavika pratyakshanumana janita drishta prayojana karma jnana bhavitaha asuraha sveshu eva asushu ramanat asuraha surebhyo va devebhyo anyatvat asuraha. It means, how can they be the gods and asuras? Those means the indriyas. How can they be spoken of as gods and demons? They become gods when they shine under the influence of thoughts and actions as taught by the scriptures. In simple words, if you follow the words of your parents, of your teachers, of your guru, then your indriyas, your body are devatas. If you don't follow that, and if you are running behind the sense organs, the vagaries of the world, then the very same indriyas in the body are asuras. How nice it is. We find it in Shankara Bhashya. Shankara is so clear about that. He says, Shastra Janita Jnana Karma Bhavitaha. When the life is, when you abide by the scriptures, the injunctions, then those indriyas in you are Dyotanat Devaha. Because they live a life of light, then they are all devatas. Ta eva, the very same senses. Swabhavika pratyakshanumana janita drishta prayojana karma jnana bhavitaha asuraha. When they work under the influence of the instincts, then they are asuras. Acharya continues. Let us see a few words of Acharya. It's so nice to learn this from Bhagavan Shankara himself. Shankara continues. Yasmacha drishta prayojana jnana karma bhavitaha asuraha tatastasmat kaniyasaha kaniyamsaha eva kaniyasaha swarte ani vriddhihi kaniyamsaha alpaha eva devaha jyayasaha asuraha jyayamsaha asuraha स्वाभाविकी ही कर्मज्ञान प्रवृत्तिर महत्तरा प्राणानां शास्त्रजनितायाः कर्मज्ञान प्रवृत्तेः दृष्टप्रयोजनत्वात् अतएव कनीयस्त्वं देवानां शास्त्रजनितप्रवृत्तेरल्पत्वात् अत्यन्तयत्नसाध्या हि सा. What does it mean? Acharya says, and because the asuras are influenced by thoughts and actions directed by visible ends, therefore the gods were fewer and the asuras more in number. Here, who are gods and who are asuras? Our own inner tendencies towards the holy, the sacred, they are gods. Our tendencies towards the ephemeral, they are asuras. In this context, we have to read these words. Acharya writes, because asuras are influenced by thoughts and actions directed to visible ends. Visible ends means the sense perceptions, that which could be enjoyed through the sense and known through the senses. If someone is engaged, engrossed in this, then his powers, his faculties are called as asuras. When the same faculties, the senses, are directed towards the sacred, the noble, the sublime, then they are devas. Now, such tendencies are few and far between. They are rare. The normal inclination, the predilection, or the proclivities are always towards the vices. So they are more in number. That is what is meant here. The organs, as we know, have a strong tendency to thoughts and actions that are natural. Swabhaviki hi karma jnana pravrittihi mahattara than to those that are recommended by the scriptures. Shastra janitayaha karma jnana pravrittehi apekshaya ityarthaha. Hence, ataeva kaniyastvam devanam. The gods are fewer. That means the inner thoughts that are sublime, sacred, they are fewer. For the tendency that is cultivated by the scriptures is rare. It is attainable with great effort. Atyanta yatna sadhya hi sa. Next, Acharya writes, Te devascha asurascha prajapati sharirasthaha eshu lokeshu nimitta bhuteshu swabhaviketara karma jnana sadhyeshu aspardhanta spardhang kritavantaha devanancha asuranancha vrityudbhava abhibhavau spardha. Acharya writes, we will just see the essence and go ahead. Here, what does it say? Devanancha asuranancha vrityudbhava abhibhavau spardha. The rivalry of the gods and the asuras here means the emergence and subsidence of their respective tendencies. Vrittihi, vrittehi udbhavaha abhibhavascha. There are much more here. Shankara has written so nicely on this. Those who are interested may later on refer to this part. It comes in the first chapter of the Brihadaranyaka-Upanishad. Then at the end, Acharya says, Evam devanan jaye dharma bhuyastvad utkarshaha āprajapatitva praptehe. Āprajapatitva praptehe. Accordingly, when the gods win, there is a preponderance of merit, and the result is elevation up to the status of Prajapati. And when the asuras triumph, demerit prevails, and the result is degradation down to the level of stationary objects. Like this, it has been very well discussed by Bhagavan Shankara. You may refer at Brihadaranyaka 1.3.1. We come to the 8th point. Wholeheartedness in performance. Any action becomes complete when all the faculties are brought to bear on that. In simple terms, in our Hindu culture, we classify that like this: physical, verbal, and mental endeavor. Sharirakam, vachikam, manasancha karma, shruti smriti siddham dharmakhyam. It comes in the Samanvayadhikarana of the Brahma Sutra Bhashya. That is why whatever we do by body, mind, and speech, kayena vacha manasendriyairva, that is how we pray. So these three elements, why we should note this? Because the Hindu knows that whatever he performs, he has to perform with all these three. Trikarana purvaka is the word sometimes used. That is why in the 16th chapter, Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga, while explaining the second divine attribute, Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhihi, Sattva Samshuddhihi, Acharya Bhagavan Shankara writes, Sattva Samshuddhihi Sattvasya Antakaranasya Samshuddhihi. But Acharya doesn't stop there. He says, Samvyavahareshu Paravanchana Maya Nritadi Parivarjanam Shuddha Sattva Bhavena Vyavaharaha Ityarthaha. How practical Bhagavan Shankara is. Shankara says, you have a pure mind inside. How will we know about that? The test is your conduct. We will gauge your purity in your conduct, in your behavior, how you behave with other people. Samvyavahareshu means the daily transactions. Paravanchana, Maya, Anritadi Parivarjanam, deceiving others, Paravanchana, Maya, craft or crookedness, Anrita, untruth. These have to be given up. When samvyavahareshu Shuddha Sattva Bhavena Vyavaharaha Ityarthaha. The conduct is the touchstone of one's purity, one's Sattva Shuddhi. This is the Hindu culture. 9th point. The law of karma is the moral compass. In the Chāndogya-Upaniṣad, it is clearly said, Tadya iha ramaniya charana abhyasho hayatte ramaniyan yonimapadyeran. Atha ya iha kapuya charanaha abhyasho hayatte kapuyan yonimapadyeran. The performers of meritorious deeds will attain good births indeed in a quick manner. On the other hand, those who perform bad deeds here will attain bad births indeed in a quick manner. Yatha karma yatha shrutam. It is said in the Kaṭhopaniṣad. And again, yatha prajñam hi sambhavaha in the Taittirīyopaniṣad. So, the results of actions corresponds to what we perform. And again, there, the quality is very important. Qualitative analysis, assessment is made. If someone performs, say, someone gives dana, with what attitude does he make this charity? Does he think himself to be very superior, egotist? He wants to despise others by making an act of charity? Then it is not at all acceptable. In our Hindu culture, the giver is at the lower level, and the person who accepts, he is put on the pedestal like a god, and with a worshipful attitude it is offered to him. This is the Hindu culture. we find that, say, for example, we can see the mantras in Taittirīyopaniṣad. The Acharya has explained it very nicely there. In the last section of Taittirīyopaniṣad, which is known as the Bhrigu-valli, the third chapter, the last section, where he speaks of several upasanas. न कंचन वसतौ प्रत्याचक्षीत तद्व्रतं तस्माद्यया कया च विधया बह्वन्नं प्राप्नुयात् आराध्यस्मा अन्नमित्याचक्षते एतद्वै मुखतो ओन्नगं राद्धम् मुखतोस्मा अन्नगं राध्यते एतद्वै मध्यतो ओन्नगं राद्धम् मध्यतोस्मा अन्नगं राध्यते एतद्वा अन्ततो ओन्नगं राद्धम् अन्ततोस्मा अन्नगं राध्यते. Shankara says, अन्नदानस्य माहात्म्यमुच्यते यथा यत्कालं प्रयच्छति अन्नं तथा तत्कालमेव प्रत्युपनमते कथमिति तदेतदाह एतद्वै अन्नं मुखतः मुख्ये प्रथमे वयसि मुख्यया वा वृत्त्या पूजा पुरस्सरम् अभ्यागताय अन्नार्थिने राद्धं संसिद्धं प्रयच्छति इति वाक्यशेषः. तस्य किं फलं स्यादिति उच्यते. मुखतः पूर्वे वयसि मुख्यया वा वृत्त्या अस्मै अन्नदाय अन्नं राध्यते यथा दत्तम् उपतिष्ठते इत्यर्थः. एवं मध्यतो मध्यमे वयसि मध्यमेन च उपचारेण तथा अन्ततः अन्ते वयसि जघन्येन च उपचारेण परिभवेन तथैव अस्मै राध्यते संसिद्ध्यत्यन्नम्. Because he offers cooked food in his early age with honor, food falls to his share in the early age with honor. See, the context is this. If someone offers food to one who seeks that, he makes a charity. He performed this act of charity in his young age, let us say, and with honor, with worshipful attitude, with full of shraddha. If he performs dana like this, annadana, then food will come to him. That means food will fall to his share in his life in the early age, because he made that dana in his early age. So it will come to him in the next birth in the early age. Or there is another meaning. Since he made it with the mukhya vritti, shraddha purassaram, puja purassaram, the food will come to him with same honor. All the food he achieves will come to him with honor because he offered food like that. See, this moral compass is set by the law of karma in Hindus. This is a very great, significant value. That is why every Hindu, whenever something, some misfortune falls to him, something happens, he immediately thinks, probably some bad work, some bad action has borne this fruit for me. Even a common man, he might be an illiterate Hindu, he knows this. Just see how efficient the education system in India was in the Vedic times. Every common man knows all these basic principles. It is in his blood. This is an important point. Then we come to the last point, 10th one. Learning and character go together in Hindu culture. Nowadays, professors in other parts of the world, they write research papers. They write, astonishingly, they write research paper on Hindu scriptures. They don't know what Hinduism is. But such people's paper alone get wide publicity. Now we have to reverse this bad trend. In India, learning and character go together. We'll find that mentioned by Bhagavan Shankara himself in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad-Gītā, the Daivasura Sampad Vibhaga Yoga. There is one divine attribute, Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi. There Shankara writes, Jnanam Shastrataha ācāryatascha Atmādi Padarthanam Avagamaha Avagatanam Indriyadyupasamharena Ekagrataya Swatma Samvedyata Padanam Yogaha tayoho jnana yoga yoho vyavasthitihi vyavasthanam tannishtata. Esha pradhana daivi satviki sampat. Persistence in knowledge and yoga. Jnana means knowledge of such subjects as the self, Atma, learned from scriptures and teachers. Yoga means making those things that have been learned matters of one's own personal experience through concentration by means of withdrawal of the organs, etc. Indriyadi upasamharena swatma samvedyata padanam. One should assimilate, one should make it one's own. These two go together in Indian culture, in Hindu culture. What are the two? Learning and realization. You learn something and live up to that by controlling the senses. It is clearly said here. If someone gives a free rein to his senses, leads a sense life, and speaks of big philosophy and write academic papers, he is not given any worth at all in the Hindu culture. This we have to bear in mind. One more small aspect here. When we say of the character goes together with learning, we have to remember that our great sages, the seers, the Brahmajnanis were very, very humble. Humility was phenomenal in them. Just compare it with the modern professors who will write that I argue in my paper that Shankara is wrong. Just compare that. Those people, out of audacity, write such things, and today such papers should not come to the Indian system at all. We should have a system in place where we can filter out all these stupid things written by the so-called professors. Just read this. There is a mantra in the Taittirīyopaniṣad, Shikshavalli, the last part. It says, Yeke chasmachreyagam so brahmana teshan tvayasanena prasvasitavyam. The point to note here is the Acharya, in the convocation, when he is seeing his disciples off, it is a farewell function. At that moment, the Acharya, the Brahmajna Purusha, he instructs his disciple, Yekecha asmachreyagam so brahmanaha. Those who are superior to or more praiseworthy than us, whoever they may be, by virtue of their distinction in teachership, etc., you should serve them by facilitating to remove their fatigue, by offering of a seat, etc., to them. See how he teaches? He doesn't say that I am a big, great professor. How can he speak about this? You go and say that I have sent you. What is this? In other words, such learning is stupidity. It is ignorance. We don't want that. We want to learn and we want to walk in the footsteps of the Brahmajna Purushas, the sages of yore. That's why Swami Vivekananda time and again mentioned that you go back to the Upanishads. And this occasion of Shankara's Janmatithi celebration is a very good occasion. May all of us pray that Bhagavan Śrī-Śaṅkara bless us with the divine attributes mentioned in the Upanishads and Gita. May that Parabrahma bless us with the strength we need to actualize all these traits, the divine qualities within us, and attain to that Brahman. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
Thank you very much, Swamiji, for such a very illuminating talk. I'm sure all of the audience got to learn so many things from this 160 minutes talk. And you make a very important point that learning without character is something completely useless. It is besides the point. Thank you very much for this very enlightening session on how the values, the dharma, is a very core of Bhagavad Padacharya's teachings. Often we focus more on the spiritual part of the teachings, but the core, at the backbone of those spiritual part of the teachings is the dharma message in the Bhagavad Padacharya. Thank you very much for sharing, highlighting this aspect, Swamiji. Viewers, we have many more sessions coming up in the festival. Today evening, we have a talk by Swami Samarpanananda ji, titled From Spirituality to Divinity. Join us at 7 p.m. Today. Thank you. With this, we conclude the session. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.